field. Looping.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for an album review. The new The Field LP, Looping State of Mind. The Field is, and always has been, the minimal techno project of electronic music producer Wilner. He's from Sweden. I think it's really funny and interesting that on his third LP, he quite literally comes out and suggests, with the title, the kind of listening experience that you're actually in for with his music. But there's definitely some advancement being shown on this thing, I think. The sounds on this thing are beefier, lower frequencies, higher frequencies, more effects on some of these sounds, more texture. I love the beats, the drums on this thing. They've just got this really nice body to them. They have a lot of push, but they're not like, bangers. The beats on this thing I can really just grab on and just hold tight for the duration of an entire track, and I'm just into it. I feel like a lot of producers can throw 4 beats on the floor. That's cool, but very rarely does it actually feel like it grooves to me. And that's how I feel with this album, though. And I think it's mostly because there's a lot of attention to detail on this thing. These little rhythmic flourishes that surround the beats, especially on the opening track. It actually kind of reminds me of listening to Fortet's latest LP, There's Love in You. Yeah, there's plenty of repetition on this thing, but there are these very subtle embellishments that surround the rhythms, that surround the melodic and harmonic elements of this album too. Like the way the synthesizers in the background of Is This Power kind of swell very slowly as the song reaches the end. On this LP, a lot of the changes and the shifts just happen so slowly and subtly, it really holds my attention because I'm just really locked into observing what's going on here. It's kind of like putting life into slow motion while still being able to think in real time. It's kind of weird. To me, this album is equal parts mesmerizing and engaging. So I think my explanation as to why I like this album is pretty simple, and it can only be simple because this is a pretty simplistic album, but not in a bad way. I just think it's interesting that what is happening on this album to me seems kind of obvious, and yet it works so well, it sounds so good, and for some reason a lot of producers overlook this kind of style, this kind of aesthetic. But that's not to say that I think this album is perfect, or that I think it's without its lower points. One of my least favorite moments is on the third track of this album, Burned Out. It's something that also happens on the last track of this album too, and for some reason it just really rubs me the wrong way. Like I said earlier, I find this album really mesmerizing, and I like that feeling. I like kind of feeling hypnotized by the repetition and the textures of this album. But on this third song, there are these really disembodied vocals floating around in the air surrounding this track, and I don't know, they're just kind of killing my buzz. They just don't feel like they fit into the song at any point for me, whereas everything is locked into this rhythmic Tetris puzzle where everything has a place and everything has a purpose. These vocals are kind of calling out and not really adding anything, just kind of distracting. Like I said, that happens on the last track too, but I think I may like that track even less because the beat is a little off for me. It kind of sounds like listening to a copy machine make about 2,000 copies non-stop. It's not a traditional rhythm, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. I think I actually would have liked the track a little bit more if I felt like that song offered as much progression as many of the other tracks on this album do. Sure, I have a few reservations, but the tracks on this thing that I loved a lot, and for sure I will be digging into the Field's previous albums a little bit more now that I have listened to this, and I liked it for the most part. Kind of feeling a decent to strong 7 on this, but what do you think? Do you like this thing? Do you hate it? Are you in a looping state of mind? And if not, why? And what should I review next? Anthony Fantano, The Field, Forever.